So this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and this is the iPhone XS Max, and it came out way back in 2018. And look at those differences in gold. Let me know which one you prefer, the older XS Max is gold or the Desert Titanium. But we're going to go ahead and find out which one could come out ahead in a speed test comparison, like how much further the 16 Pro Max comes over the older iPhone XS Max. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Let's go ahead and begin with a boot up test between the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the iPhone XS Max. We'll begin in 3, 2, go, and see which one could get there first. Now, honestly, the XS Max feels more comfortable to hold. It also does feel like it doesn't really feel like a Max phone anymore by comparison to the new Max. The new Max feels truly Max. You can see at the top, there's a lot of distance on that height, but also a lot of distance on the width. The newer phone has more screen to body ratio, so it definitely feels much larger. But in a weird turn of events, the iPhone XS Max does turn on faster. For some reason, I've been noticing in all my speed tests, the boot up time has been faster on the older phones for some reason. I don't know what that is all about. But you could see, just look at that gap in size. This almost looks like a regular Pro now versus the iPhone 16 Pro Max. But that win is going to the iPhone XS Max to boot up. All right, so looking at Face ID, I will say the one on the newer phone is far more accurate than the iPhone XS Max. It is 6 years newer. And some of the updates that they've made to Face ID over the years have made it a little bit better. But it's not like anything drastic. In good lighting, the iPhone XS Max does fine. I did find a few times, if I was in dimmer lighting, that the XS Max would struggle a little bit. Not very frequently, but there was more scenarios where that would happen. But overall, you could see on the weird angles, the XS Max just missed right there, whereas this one would not miss on that weird angle. When you first boot into these phones and you kind of just generally scroll through, you would think there's not a massive difference, and there's not really much on the way of the home screens. However, when we do start getting into multiple apps, you're going to see where the iPhone XS Max starts to stumble. But I still think it's impressive that we have the latest software on the 6-year-old iPhone XS Max. And I will say one thing. These older phones, they do perform better than some of the previous years did. Like when we had like 2 gigs of RAM on an iPhone, these 4 gig and up iPhones tend to perform a little better, even though they're much older than those experiences were as those phones aged. So what I'm saying is the gap between how long you can go is getting longer with each iPhone. But general software, this kind of just reminds me on the home screen of the Plus or the 60 hertz versus the 120 hertz. Because iOS is just fluid on the main screens. That really doesn't change much between these two. All right, guys, so we have the same apps lined up on both. Let me close out that application. You can see everything is closed out. Let's begin with calendar. And I think maybe faster on the left, we'll go to clock here. And maybe slightly on the left, but these are base apps, so these don't really have any major issues. Swiping out feels smooth on both. However, I was testing, that was faster on the left. I was testing XS Max, and it was starting to stumble a lot when I was testing before, because I always test them before making the video. And that one was faster on the 16 Pro Max. It was stumbling more than I could remember when I owned this phone. And you'll see we are already reading the news there, although we are on a different section. So I'm going to be fair here and just go to one of these similar sections. So let's go to just Apple. This one, it says Apple right here, Apple right here. 3, 2, go. Still loaded first on the left, and they're already talking about iPhone SE4. I mean, man, phone comes out a week later, we're talking about the 17. Chill, bro. Can we get a second with the phone before you start talking about the next one? Dang. Let's go on to App Store. 3, 2, go. The media is just relentless with these upgrades. You'll see on the left right there, faster for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. We'll hit apps. Pops that open. And games. And pops that open. Now, do you see that gap right there of loading? That was substantial. As that adds up throughout the day, this phone's going to feel, look at this. Look, like this is going to feel far slower day to day now. I don't remember my XS Max feeling like that. I wonder if the newer upgrade is slowing it down. You'll see over there on the left, by a good margin, once in. And don't get it twisted. It's not like the iPhone XS Max is not functional. It's kind of fun that it is still functional here 6 years later. It's still usable. I could actually use the XS Max, but I would be probably itching for more performance at this point. Let's go into X, and you see that was first on the left. Let's go to Profile. About the same. So once in the app, not a drastic difference. The scrolling is drastically better on the iPhone 16 Pro Max though. Let's go into YouTube, 3, 2, go. And you'll see that was faster on the left. I do have to go over here to this section to match them up. A little faster on the left, but again, once in the app, XS Max doesn't move along as fast as the 16 Pro Max, but it's not unusable. It's still very usable, which to me, the fact alone that it's still usable in 2024, that's kind of impressive. But it's definitely showing that age now. All right, guys, so let's go into Amazon now. And you'll see Amazon loads there first on the left. So not by a ton, but definitely something. And that swipe out was not pretty for the XS Max right there. Let's go into eBay. That was a little faster on the left over there. And if we swipe up out of there, let's go into Groupon. Groupon's going first to the left. And here comes the right. You see that load was about 1 to 2 seconds. That is substantial. I know it seems like nothing here when we're doing, Groupon or whatever. These regular apps, I know it seems like it's basically nothing, but the fact of the matter is that when it's that substantial, like a second or two, you have to add up the apps throughout the day. It's going to make this phone feel slow throughout look at that. Like that 1 to 2 seconds is going to make this load kind of feel slow, especially if you are kind of trying to move fast and get your stuff done. This phone for pro users would definitely slow them down at this point. Let's go into Jetpack. Not for casual use. Casual users, people who don't care about loading a second or two later, no problem. But this phone was intentionally going after the high end when it first came out, the XS Max. And it definitely doesn't perform at the high end. But again, I'm not just knocking it. It also still impresses me that we run all these latest apps though. So it's kind of like it's bittersweet. Like in some ways it's impressive, in others it's like not. You can see gaming so much slower there. And I think these older comparisons to the newer phones actually show way more differences. Started to get a little choppy there. Even in Subway Surfers, there was like when he was jumping, it was getting a little bit, like he was getting a little bit choppy there. Game mode does enhance the performance even on older iPhones. But again, I'm not sure if it's just the phones are so much faster nowadays or if my 16 Pro Max is just that much quicker. Because I don't remember this being like this on the XS Max in my initial days of speed tests. Let's go into Dead Trigger 2 on like iOS 12 when this thing came out. And you'll see we're already in the game. And we're going to swipe out now. So you'll already be playing the game by the time this just gets to the home screen. So the time savings here between these applications and the day-to-day is substantial on this comparison right here. You'll see here we go again with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And I'm kind of glad this is happening because finally you'll see a comparison here where we do have substantial leads on the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus some of those other comparisons where it's not that big of a jump. This one is pretty substantial though. And I'm not just saying about the loads. When you're actually in the game, the XS Max tends to, I was testing this prior to the speed test, this tends to get a little bit choppier and hotter to the touch, especially on some of the more intense games. So I probably wouldn't play, and you see that swipe out was pretty laggy. I probably wouldn't play anything beyond some casual games nowadays on the iPhone XS Max. If that was my main phone, I would just use all the basic apps, all the apps you need, and probably just play some casual games with maybe one graphically intensive game here and there if I really wanted to deal with its performance. But other than that, I feel like this is more of a basic use. Good camera still, not amazing camera, but still good camera. Just a basic use, bigger iPhone that was a one-time premium. Let's get up out of here. You'll see the swipe out so much slower on the right. And you'll see faster here. This is mostly due to the Geekbench 6 being updated for the older phones. You'll see 2.49 gigahertz, 4.03 gigahertz, so almost twice as fast in terms of the clock speed, and doubling up on the RAM. Although at this point, I feel like Apple should have been tripled on the RAM. They should have been at 12 gigs already. As a matter of fact, they could have been at 16 at this point. But they like to take things incredibly snail pace slow. So let's go into the next one, which is going to be speed test. And that's faster on the left. And there comes the right, and iMovie. And there comes the right. So yeah, I think this was a pretty apparent difference here. The 16 Pro Max is giving you like double the performance, even in just day-to-day app launching, just day-to-day stuff, it's giving you double the performance. So this is a massive leap forward if you held on to your XS Max. Let's go ahead and check the RAM management now. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and go through the RAM management. And I know some people are probably thinking, my XS Max don't perform like that. What are you doing? Yeah, well, go take your XS Max to the Apple Store and then start launching some apps. Compare it side by side to a 16 Pro Max, and then we'll talk. Because I'm pretty sure it's going to be something you don't really notice, if it's your main everyday phone. And I'm not picking on your phone. I bought that phone too. It's also my phone. Great phone. But at this point, it's getting a little bit dated. If you take it to the store, and you've seen pretty much no reloads, if you take it to the store, then you'll see the actual differences. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and take it on to the XS Max. And if you take this thing to the store, you'll probably see the differences more. But the question is the XS Max slowing you down? If you feel like your phone's getting a weak battery, it's slowing you down, then maybe it's time to upgrade. But if it's not bothering you, it's not slowing you down, you still probably don't need to upgrade. And you see reload on Real Racing. We're not going to sit around and wait for that. And you can see, here we go. The cool thing, though, is that you can upgrade the iPhone XS Max and go to like a 16 Plus, and that will still feel like a huge upgrade from this phone. And we're getting 4 reloads. And then you see, this is the area where when I was doing my preliminary testing, I was like really shocked by just like this choppy look when going back through the apps. It's kind of like a newer version of when I used to cover the older 1 gig of RAM iPhones, but not quite that bad. That was pretty atrocious back then. But let's go over here to App Store, and you'll see just nothing. Did it just dim itself too? Yep, it just dimmed itself. It's overheating. We'll go over here to weather calculator. Overheating on basic stuff like this, like opening and holding up some apps. This is unbelievable. So let's go ahead and check the temperature there. See where we're at. We're at 115 at the hottest point. I think the hottest point is somewhere up in this area. 122. Down here, not so hot. 122. You've seen it over there. 16 Pro Max had a second to cool down, but we haven't even pushed this phone yet. So heat management is going to be drastically improved as well on the new gold phone versus the old gold iPhone XS Max. And here are your Geekbench scores, and you could see 13, 14 on the iOS 18 on the right, and then we do have 2562. And if you're wondering why it looks so dim, it's because it auto-dimmed itself. Look at, that's the max brightness. Like after here, it's not changing. I know it's a protective feature, but super annoying. This like, never happens on the 16 Pro Max. You'll see 2562 versus 7751. So drastic leaps there in that benchmark. But just because this happens here, I'm assuming that in the future, like 6 years down the line, this phone might do the same thing, especially because 8 gigs of RAM is not going to be holding up 6-7 years down the line. I feel like 8 gigs of RAM is going to feel really dated pretty quickly as new iPhones come out and the brightness came back. It got back under control. There we go. You've seen it just kind of blink back up. I feel like down the line, we're going to need at least 16 gigs of RAM and future software as Apple Intelligence advances and as the software advances. The 16 Pro Max is done, and this is a sad day for the XS Max. I'm seeing the frame rates down there right around 5 FPS. Not looking pretty. We have a 4680 here on the left, 28 FPS, and our battery went from 60 to 60, so no drop there. We do have an average frame rate of 18 to 36, and then if you take a look, we got dimmed again on the iPhone XS Max, and that should tell you what you need to know. This phone cannot handle the heat anymore. You give it the power, you give it the beans, it can't handle it anymore. So you'll see right here, 4 to 9 FPS and 80 to 80, so it didn't really drop. This can only score better than 17% of devices on the market. That means that even mid-rangers are smoking the iPhone XS Max right now. If we go over here, we'll see that the average frame rate will guarantee a far smoother gaming experience for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And I was playing games on it yesterday and I was just floored at how great it performs. It felt like a little mini console in my hand with the performance. So yeah, 10s Max definitely way behind for sure. And you can still do things like video rendering. It's still pretty smooth on the timeline, even for the older 10s Max. However, it's not going to render nearly as fast, and as you start adding effects and things of that sort, you might get a little bit hot on the 10s Max and not going to perform quite as well in that respect. Let's go ahead now and launch the cameras and see how fast they can do this task. I'm not even going to render a video because I don't want to embarrass the iPhone 10s Max at this point. Let's go ahead now and hit camera. And that was pretty nice for the 10s Max. Let's do it again. 3, 2, go. Faster on the right, or on the left, sorry. And then you'll see that if we scroll through the zooming, we're hitting the camera capture button there. The 10s Max is still a very good, smooth zooming phone though. Apple has nailed this years ago, so they're doing very good there. And shutter speed's no problem. So again, basic functionality, taking a photo, still not a problem for iPhone 10s Max. But at the end of the day, I think we have our conclusion here. The 10s Max, is time for an upgrade. Yeah, even in performance. This thing gets warm, it auto dims the screen, it can't handle games like really that great besides some casual stuff. The camera is really outdated. It's been so much improved over here. The battery life is not a max-like battery life anymore on here. Even when this phone came out, it didn't have amazing battery life anyway. So like even now, I still have 100% capacity on mine, but it still doesn't last super long. This phone over here is just an upgrade in every conceivable way. And if you have a 10s Max and you still think you're not getting big changes here, think again, because you're getting massive changes here. This is like transforming into a brand new experience. This is like going from those old bezel plus phones to like when you went to the iPhone 10. Like it's game changing coming from this to this. Maybe not so much 12 Pro Max, 13 Pro Max, those phones, but this one, huge. You'll be incredibly happy with the upgrade. Anyway, that's it for me. And I'm not saying that you can't keep the 10s Max. It's your choice. You don't have to listen to some guy on the internet. It's your choice. But at the end of the day, if you are looking for an upgrade, I can tell you from my experience, it's massive. So thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you guys all in the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.